I'm Asmodeus, from the Strange and Unusual podcast, a proud member of the GonnaGeek network, just like the show you're listening to now. The opinions expressed are those of each individual host. Check out all the other podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com, and get ready because geekiness begins in 3, 2, 1.
This is it. The part of your week where you get to put your headphones on, relax, and listen to a bunch of geeks geek out about geeky things. They're passionate.
Did you know Magic Mike XXL is actually on the top 25 list of this year's best movie?
They're witty.
He loves him some Katy Perry because she kissed a girl and she liked it.
They're crazy.
I like Nickelback personally, but, I'm the fuddy-duddy who likes episode 1.
And sometimes they leave you wondering, what the f***?
I'm pretty sure that here we were starting the hashtag movement, bring back Slave Ferrell.
Welcome to the GonnaGeek.com podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 151 of the official GonnaGeek.com podcast. My name is Crippled Stephen Jondrew, and with me today is Chris Ferrell.
And I am not crippled unless you consider my emotions.
We also have with us the legendary, the heroic, the person that you call out for in the middle of the night, Jean-Sebastien.
What's up, baby girl?
And he calls back you. And we finally do have, taking Stargate Pioneer seat, we do have the one and only GFQ Network's Sunkast.
Did I win? Did I win?
You did. And first off, let's go ahead and apologize to everybody. Last week, we did have to cancel the show. We ran into some weird resource issues with my Windows 10 box. I think it might have been a bad update, so I'm hoping to get that figured out, but we've got it going for this week, so sorry, but we did have to cancel. We tried to diagnose for a half hour, so my apologies.
Steven,
yes,
you can sue Microsoft and get compensation for this. There is now precedent for that.
Yes, let's do it.
But the last episode that we had, number 152 weeks ago, was our awards ceremony, so we do still proudly have the awards on display. We do have all 4, and one is, as requested, in a box in storage in my office. So we're set right here. Chris is inside the box.
Oh man, I love this show so much.
You requested it, Chris. You requested it.
I really did, and I'm so glad that you picked up on what I was asking for. Feel free to send your hate mail to Chris at GonnaGeek.com.
No. Hate mail is only for JS. Everybody knows that.
Oh, that's so true. JS wants himself some hate mail, so make sure that you do send JS hate mail, and you can do that through a variety of ways, including on Instagram to JS Heroux.
Yes, Instagram, no Twitter. I don't Twitter.
By the way, I want to mention that we are shockingly part of the GonnaGeek network, and if you are looking to apply to a network, we invite you to check out the GonnaGeek network. We do actually have a bar, believe it or not. You might not know it from this show, but we do have a bar that we try to meet. And so
different bar. I was going to drink.
Yeah, different bar. But we do have a certain level that we do try to reach. So not everybody is accepted, but we encourage you to submit your podcast at GonnaGeek Network/join if you are interested in joining a network. Before we do, though, talk about the news, Sunkast, I have completely missed your opportunity to promote yourself and tell everybody who you are, because let's be honest, everybody usually shows up to find out about Stargate Pioneer.
I'm Sunkast, aka John from the GFQ Network, where I do a whole lot of cool things. I produce a whole bunch of podcasts over there. My podcast is called Tech News Weekly. It's every Friday afternoon around 2 o'clock or so, where we discuss a whole bunch of tech news. I do a lot of cool things over there. Check it out at gfqnetwork.com.
All right. right. You know what we should do? We should go to our guest of honor today to give the first news point. Sunkast, what do you have going on today in your news?
All right, so I'm sure you guys are fans of, a bunch of CW shows and stuff that's on CW, such as Arrow, Flash, and Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., or Legends of Tomorrow, correct?
I would say I am.
What CW? The last thing that I watched with them was 90210, but when that got canceled, I didn't go back. So
I don't think they existed back then, though. So
I'm not sure.
I don't know how you watched it.
There was a reboot,
CW.
though.
Yeah, no, the reboot, the 90210
Oh,
reboot.
the reboot.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not really sure what else is on.
Well, unfortunately, I have bad news for you guys if you watch any of these CW shows, and you also are a subscriber of Hulu. So CW shows are leaving Hulu when the licensing agreement expires this October. Under current terms, Hulu subscribers have access to the 5 most recent episodes of any CW show. Starting in October, there won't be any CW shows on Hulu anymore. CW has decided not to renew their deal with Hulu as a result of Hulu asking for access to the entire season of CW shows, not just the most recent 5. A lot of the customers of Hulu have been saying that they wanted, access to the entire season catalog of TV shows for whatever CW puts on Hulu. And apparently Hulu does not want to, or not, CW does not want to do that. Instead, they would rather you go to their website and just choose from the 5 most recent episodes of any given TV show that the CW has. So that's the bad news. However, there is a little bit of good news here, and that's that Netflix has struck a deal with the CW for full seasons of CW shows that will be available just a few weeks after a season ends, rather than the usual several months after a season wraps up. So there is that little bit of good news there. However, if you are a subscriber of Hulu, you're going to be out of luck. You're going to have to either go to the CW network website to see the 5 most recent episodes of a CW show, or wait until it's on Netflix.
Well, I'm actually a little okay with this because Hulu's purpose is to offer a cutting the cable alternative, right? And so I think that I actually have really good respect for them standing their ground on this. And it is the type of ground standing that we need to get more cable cutting alternatives. Yeah.
It's sad because of all the, on-demand services out there, Hulu, Netflix, Amazon Prime. For TV shows, to me, Hulu is where you should go for current airing TV shows. And this is kind of a bummer to me because if I were to subscribe to any of those, for TV shows, it would be Hulu because they have the largest catalog. And quite frankly, I just don't see a lot of value in Netflix shows. So to me, it would be more beneficial to subscribe to Hulu than it would be to Netflix.
So what they've done here is they've kind of moved the CW shows to the same model they're having with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the entire season comes to Netflix about a month after the season's done airing. So like if you look right now, season 3 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is all available on Netflix. Strangely not Agent Carter and things like that, but that seems to be the trend that people are wanting to follow now. And if I'm the CW, I understand their reasoning. They want people to go to their website to watch stuff.
The problem with this is that they're only giving you access to the 5 most recent episodes until it's available on Netflix, a month or 2 after the season ramps up. And the problem is that people want access to the entire season, not just the 5 most recent episodes.
People like to binge. That's the problem. People are bingers.
Let's keep in mind that what CW is doing is also free for the last 5 episodes, whereas you're paying for the Hulu service and things like that. All CW gets out of it is advertising dollars from running ads.
But I think Hulu has proven that people are willing to pay for access to content like this, and especially if it's the entire catalog of every single show and every single season.
I don't disagree with you. I think what it comes down to is twofold why this happened. Number one, they want people going to their site so they can draw the dollars from that. And number two, Netflix probably offered more money than Hulu.
Yeah, Netflix is a better service too. Netflix has way more subscribers.
It does, but Hulu is kind of on the up now, which you wouldn't have thought of about 2 years ago. Hulu was a punchline a lot of the time, and they've kind of gotten their S together, for lack of a better term, and they've become a pretty viable streaming service if you want to go see some decent original content and a lot of shows that are on actual live TV. What's going to be very interesting for Hulu is how that shifts when all these channels start going more and more to having their own streaming service. Obviously, the CBS stuff won't impact them that much because they're part owned by CBS, but the ABC stuff could be potentially painful.
I think the problem here is in large part that people are not used to, accustomed to, or like going to networks in order to access this content. They'd rather have a centralized place to access this content, which Hulu provided or Netflix provides, whereas having to figure out, all right, well, this show airs on this network, so I have to go to this website, and do they have the most recent episode? Do they have the entire season? What episodes do they have? Whereas Hulu, generally in large part, and Netflix as well, will have either the 5 most recent episodes or the entire current season.
Right.
Yeah, I'm thinking that it's really not going to be that big of a deal because, let's be honest, yes, it's big. It's a big program, but it still is the CW. And I think that this was probably a worthwhile time for Hulu to stand their ground because there are a lot bigger players that might have made them take a different move.
I don't know, man. These are pretty binge-worthy shows, though. That's the thing, is these superhero shows on CW, people do binge them on a regular basis. It would be nice to have in your back catalog, but I guess also, I'm kind of backtracking a little bit, I realize. If you're Hulu, you realize we have a giant catalog of stuff right now. Losing 4 superhero shows, probably not the end of the world for us.
Yeah, especially the superhero show stuff is getting... There's fatigue, intense fatigue for superhero stuff. I don't know if you guys have this, but in Canada, some of our suppliers have a PVR type service. So anything that plays on their on the cable, you can watch on a like online after. I don't know if you guys have that.
I think there are some companies that provide a service similar to that, but I'm not sure specifically which ones.
So there were some.
I know that Comcast and Xfinity kind of have some on-demand stuff, but again, it's just part of it comes down to, where can I access this for the best quality and best value, and have the easiest access, because that's the other thing.
Which is okay, right? I mean,
yeah,
and that's the problem we've had forever when it comes to all these streaming services. How do I find the show I want to see? It's kind of a hunt and search kind of thing, or if you're smart, you find a couple sites on the web that make it easier. I've talked about on this show before, there's a site called canistream.it that's pretty much my go-to when I'm trying to stream something, so I can see whether it's available on Hulu, on Netflix, rental from Netflix, anything like that, and it kind of gives you a decent idea of where to go to find stuff. But you need that common universal kind of internet login that lets you log into one place and watch whatever you want. And I think we're a ways off from that. Hulu was envisioned to be that originally, but it is not that.
You also have to have a good content distribution network. And if you don't have a good content distribution network, or you're not streaming in a decent quality, people are not going to want to go and view your content. And that's just it. I know that there are people that complain about the WWE network and the quality of their streaming. And it's just one of those things where people want high quality video streams. And if you're not able to provide that, and the ease of use is not there, people won't use it.
I mean, net neutrality is a big problem here in Canada. There's a huge discussion about there's companies that are offering unlimited bandwidth if you watch Netflix, for example. Are you guys experiencing that as well?
T-Mobile does the binge on thing where they exempt certain services, and so if you watch Netflix on your T-Mobile phone, it won't count against your data.
And then you've got Comcast does something similar for Comcast streaming stuff. Like if you're streaming stuff off your DVR or streaming Comcast on-demand content while on your Comcast network, I don't believe it counts against you. It's an interesting argument as to whether that falls under net neutrality. They say that it doesn't, and they've got some technical reasons saying they route it through something else. It's not truly on their internet network to get to you. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but for the most part, net neutrality's come into play, and they haven't really been like, oh, you don't get charged for this if you stream with us anymore. Comcast had been a bad had set a bad precedent with that in the past. Rather, when they put their cable box service, I think on the Xbox 360, who watch on demand stuff, they had set a deal so that didn't count against your bandwidth quota if you were on Comcast internet, things like that.
Yeah.
Well, in any case, I'll reiterate, I think that this is a good movement towards having more providers or more content creators available through other distribution methods than just the traditional ones. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of it going forward. But let's move on to the next news point that we have here, which is one that I don't actually personally know why he chose this, but Chris chose some news about Rogue One, and he does not like Star Wars at all. So
No,
I'm
I hate Star Wars.
completely shocked that he chose this.
All kidding aside, I've been a Star Wars fan for a long time, so I've been geeking out over all of the news that has started to leak its way out about Star Wars Rogue One. We had a lot of rumors of things that would be coming, and then this week Entertainment Weekly kind of got the scoop on everything, and they gave a lot of character descriptions for all the new characters, gave some background. That's not the important thing, though. They confirmed one of the long-running rumors. Yes, Darth Vader is going to be featured in Star Wars Rogue One, and even better, James Earl Jones is coming back to reprise the voice role as James Earl Jones. It's not unheard of. He's done it in Star Wars Rebels, but they've also used the Chad Vader voiceover actor in the past to be Darth Vader. So I'm geeking out over the fact that Vader's back on the big screen and Vader is James Earl Jones again, and I cannot wait to see it.
Wait, was he not in the original or in the new trilogy, the 1 through 3? Was he?
Just the no.
Because they did it at 3, right? Like they had him
He
in
was
3,
in
right?
3.
Yeah.
So he
okay.
has been Vader in all of the movies, but most of like the video game content.
Okay.
And some of the Star Wars Rebels cartoons where Vader appeared in season 1, he was not the voice of Darth Vader. They used the Chad Vader voice.
Okay.
Who is very good. He does a very good Darth Vader. And now he has come back in season 2 to be Darth Vader on Rebels and has signed a deal to be Darth Vader for Star Wars Rebels. He's 85 years old, so it's awesome to see him back in that role.
Yeah, very cool.
My opinion kind of on it is that if you're doing a movie with Darth Vader, like a feature film, you ask James Earl Jones as long as he is alive. If you don't, you're doing a disservice to the fans.
So the question was, would he want to come back to do it? I don't see any reason why he would have said no, but they had to make sure. I mean, the fact he's come back to do Rebels was a good indicator. He's not done with the role. He's enjoying it. And getting to do voice work at 85 is probably a lot easier than having to be on set for hours at a time, too, I would wager.
I mean, James Earl Jones as Darth Vader is iconic. I think for the general Star Wars fans, there is nobody else. There is nobody else other than James Earl Jones as Darth Vader. And especially when it comes to the movies, it makes perfect sense that they would have James Earl Jones back as the voice of Darth Vader.
Yeah. You know, I would like to see Mr. Prowse give an attempt at the Darth Vader voice. No?
You will not see David Prowse in a Lucasfilm movie again. He and George Lucas did not part on the best of terms. And yes, I know George Lucas is not running Lucasfilm anymore, but I think that bridge is still
part
burned.
of the deal.
For a
For
long time, David Prowse was not even allowed to attend Star Wars Celebration and things like that. Lucasfilm would not invite him, would not allow him to come in. So things ended very badly there. And if you've followed any of the internet gossip around it, David Prowse was very upset about the fact that he generally did the voice work on set, and then they redubbed him with James Earl Jones' voice.
Yeah, well, you know, that's part of being in an iconic movie that you got to live with it now. Nobody knows who you are.
Well, I mean, he still makes a decent living on the convention circuit as the body of Darth Vader.
That's true. That's very true. I know that's where he is getting into all of his fist fights.
I mean, there's good points to that, because if you're just that guy that nobody really knows, that actually can open you up to way more opportunities than somebody that is well known and is, such as James Earl Jones, in some ways stereotyped as Darth Vader.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
No, he's stereotyped as Mufasa, okay, guys? He's Simba's dad. Wasn't
he the Verizon voiceover guy for a while, too? That's where I remember him from.
He was also the This Is CNN guy from the commercials, and I believe he was Bleeding Gums Murphy in The Simpsons.
I think you're right on that. Well, I'm
Did you
excited
guys hear
to hear
the
this,
rumor that what's her name, Rey's Palpatine's granddaughter?
Yeah, I don't believe it, but I've heard that one.
Oh, it is. I'm sure of it.
Why do you think that, JS?
Because in not every, but in most Star Wars movie, there's always been a Palpatine and there's always been a Skywalker. It's a good theory, man. It's a pretty good theory.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm buying it either, but I would like it.
Let's bet some money. Because it's obviously she's not a Skywalker. That's the expected. And then she's not going to be an Obi-Wan. Not going to be a Kenobi. That's like, I don't think that's possible. I'm telling you, man, it's Palpatine's granddaughter.
It's just going to be like random person. It'll be like they'll somehow do a flashback and it will be like a Fred from the local grocery store. It'll be
from Tashi Station.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
No, she's too strong with the Force, man.
Fred was strong with the Force too.
No, he was not.
Fred was awesome, man.
All right, well, let's go to the final news point here that we've got, which is about the Chromebook. That's right. The rumors are heating up that the Chromebook is getting an upgrade. What happened was apparently, as you may be slightly aware of, there is a Google Opinion Rewards application out there. I personally use it all the time. It is phenomenal. If you have Android, make sure you get it because it is a great way to pick up some Google Play credit. You answer like 3 questions. Whether or not you answer them legitimately is up to you. And you get like 30 cents and it adds up very damn quick. You're already making money on your job, taking a deuce, getting paid to take a deuce. Why don't you make a little extra cash while you're doing it at the same time? So
that's rude.
Google Opinion Rewards.
There's also survey. There's also the survey.
That's what it is. It is the same thing. So
I thought it was called survey.
No, it's called Google Opinion Rewards, but it is a Google survey. And there was a Reddit user who posted that they got the question, how would you think a Chromebook Pro is different than a Chromebook? And then, of course, other people posted similar questions that they were asked. So people are thinking that this is an indication that Google might be looking to do a Chromebook Pro. So let's start with the question first. How would you think a Chromebook Pro is different than a Chromebook Sunkast? Answer that question for me.
Less sucky? All right, so I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking about how the current applications of the Chromebook is largely educational. And so I think if they're looking for maybe something pro, maybe they're looking for something more along the lines of enterprise, whereas businesses could possibly use something like a Chromebook in cases where they don't need a full-blown laptop, but they need something in between that can be largely cloud-based, but not have a lot of stuff on the computer, on the Chromebook itself. And it could be something that serves the enterprise in some sort of role.
I think, my mind actually went along the same lines because I think initially people are going to be thinking that it's more like a viable regular use case laptop. I know right now, Chris, your co-host on ATG, and Anthony uses a Chromebook, and there's certain issues you run into with him using it. Mainly, it doesn't do Skype and some other random things.
Mainly, it sucks.
And that too. And I think this is my theory. My theory is that they're questioning it based on the name because they're wanting to see right now a Chromebook Pro. For them, I think they're gearing it towards the business user, but they want to see if people are going to make the correlation between an iPad, between what an iPad Pro is and an iPad. They're basically for the same people, just different levels. And I think that they're wanting to see, will this be a big marketing misstep to use that name Chromebook Pro, because people might think, oh, it's for the regular user, when it isn't really geared towards them.
I think it's far simpler what they're going to do. Are you guys familiar with the Chromebook Pixel that came out?
No.
Yeah.
It was the souped up version of the Chromebook. It cost what, like $1,600, had an awesome display. The build quality was great. This Chromebook Pro is going to be the latest hardware update for the Chromebook Pixel. It's going to get rebranded so that it is more of the premium experience that they envisioned the Pixel to be, and is billed as, here, this is what you give the people that are working in your office, that are on the road, that need a more powerful rig to take with them. I think that's what it'll end up being.
The problem with that is that even those kind of people aren't looking to spend $1,600 on a Chromebook.
That's the misstep.
Yes. They're at most going to spend $699 or $799 on a Chromebook. That is the most that they're ever going to spend on a Chromebook-like device.
Here's the simple fact. If someone's going to spend $1,600 on a laptop, they're not buying a Chromebook. They're probably not buying a Windows desktop. They're buying one of the new MacBooks of some kind, because that's the popular $1,600 laptop to give to people to use. And I'm not even a Mac guy, and I'm saying that.
Well, I guess we'll see what happens. I still think it's a branding thing. I think that's the reason why. I don't think that they necessarily are looking to see if they're going to meet the public opinion of the product, because that's not Google. Google doesn't work that way. They come up with a vision and they put out the vision and they go, whoever wants to get it gets it. And you look at their phones, look at their tablets. That's always been how they've operated. I think that it's more of a naming question. That's my
yeah. I mean,
theory on
they
it.
did it with the Nexus Q. They took that off the table because it sucked. Then they put out the Android TV. The Android TV by Asus has been discontinued. They were building Android TV into TVs themselves. That got discontinued because Chromecast took off. It's just another iron that Google can put in the fire to see what comes of it. If nothing comes of it, it'll get discontinued a year or two.
Yeah,
Fair.
I agree. Doesn't cost them much to try it either.
I mean, there's also a rumor right now that came out today that they're going to make their own phone to compete with the iPhone. Do I necessarily believe that? No, but I want it to be true because it'd be really cool to have a direct Google phone.
That would be cool.
Not that going to happen. They said they're not making hardware anymore. They said it themselves. They don't waste time.
Yeah, and they've had difficulties in the past with their own hardware. Of course, they've had difficulties with other people making hardware for them as well, so...
That's true. Well, I want to ask JS here. JS.
Yes, sir.
You are a computer entrepreneur. That's what
sir.
you do for work.
Yes, sir.
Do you see the public eye ever really, really getting into the Chromebooks? Or do you think it will always be a niche?
Nope, not going to happen.
And why do you say
right
that?
now? Because all the children that go to the Starbucks to study, they have to have their MacBook Pro to look pro. And this is, again, I've said it, it's a big problem. They come out of school and then they have no clue what to do when they touch a PC at the office. As for people who are office people, and I'll tell you this by experience, very much by experience. First thing when somebody asks me, I would like a computer for an employee, send me a quote. So send them an i7. Oh my God, $700. Are you nuts? $800. Are you nuts? Holy moly. So we downgrade it to an i5, goes down to this or that. Most of the time right now we're promoting Lenovo's and they're about that, $500 to $800. When you go down to the i5s, they go down to $500. So yeah, we'll take that. And you know what the second thing is? It's I need Office. And I don't think the Chromebook runs Office. You need Office.
You can run the cloud version of it, I think, that Microsoft offers at this point in time, but not local.
There's no business that wants that. No business is going to lose time. Time is money. Nobody wants to. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. And to be fair, they're not targeting business really, other than the Pixel experiment.
And the problem is they're targeting a very niche group. They're targeting the people who don't want to have a MacBook Pro or don't want to have a Mac. They're targeting people who want to have a good-looking machine that enjoys Google. It's really niche. I don't think they're losing money, but this isn't something that's going to sell. I'm not going to sell one.
I don't think, but this is more an experiment for Google, I think, to test the Chrome OS or whatever they end up calling it, to test the capability of moving Android apps over to Chrome OS to try and grow that ecosystem. They're playing around with stuff, and the Chromebook hardware is the easiest way to get people to play around with their software for them. I think that's more of what it is. I don't think they care if they make a ton of money on this. because the later play for them is to build Chrome OS as an alternative OS that people want to use. So basically, you sell the cheap hardware now, figure out what works, what doesn't, and say arbitrarily 5 years from now, you can be like, hey, Chrome OS is ready to go. Here, it's free. Put it on your computers, see how you like it. It gets people using Chrome search for everything, gets you bought into the Google infrastructure, and it keeps you as a Google consumer. That's the play for them, I think. But I'm not. Go ahead.
They did it with the glasses. I mean, nobody talks about the glasses anymore. That's what they do. They test stuff. They pump out $1,000 gadget that all the geeks get, and the geeks test it, and the geeks say it's trash, and then it dies. Or if the geeks say it's amazing.
And then they reuse bits and pieces out of those things and put them in other things, because a lot of like the visual cues that were built into Google Glass to do like image recognition and things like that, they're probably building into like Google Photo and things like that, so it can figure out where you are based off of photos. Everything that Google does is so it can be reused somewhere else. I don't think they really just be like, oh, we're going to do this one-off and never use anything from it again.
Yeah, and they never trash things. What they end up doing is they go, okay, well, we're not going to do it anymore, so it's open source now, so you guys go have fun. And then we want to aggregate all this that made it like the super data or stuff like that.
Yeah, except for Google Reader, I still have heartburn over that going away.
Thank God for Feedly.
Yeah, Feedly's close.
Yeah. Well, I'll be interested to see what happens, and
it's gonna die. I will bet money right now. It's gonna be a very niche market. There's gonna be 1 out of 100 purchasers. They're gonna buy it. They're gonna love it. They're gonna say it's amazing.
You know, the only thing that I would say about it is, like, I believe that with Chromebooks, there is a way. There's a remote desktop client. I think somebody has an app for that. And if that is the case, I could see me maybe using it as like a bring it on the road on a work trip because they're light thing. Because most of the time when I'm on the road, I'm working on podcasts and I'm remoting in home, or I'm doing something like that.
So I'm glad you mentioned that, because a Chromebook is basically the new netbook is how I look at it. Is when I was traveling all the time for work, I bought a netbook because it was $200. It was disposable. If something happened to it, I gave zero craps. I'd buy a new one, but I was not bringing my $1,300 to $1,600 laptop on the road with me that could play games and do everything I needed to, because if that broke, I would be genuinely upset. You can take my netbook and do whatever you want to it. I still have it, in fact. We can smash it live on air or something.
Yes, I like it. We're going to hold you to that. But
I got to find it. I don't know where it is.
Put it in a blender.
Will it blend? Yes, it will.
Well, let's just go ahead, though, and wrap up the news here and get to our next point. But before we do that, I want to remind everybody that, as I mentioned, we're part of the GonnaGeek Network. And also on the GonnaGeek Network is a little show called Nerd Alert News. And in Nerd Alert News number 42, Chris loves Mass Effect. Sony has plans to work with Marvel Studios more in the future, and that's minor compared to some other news that's coming out there. So check all of that out at GonnaGeekNetwork.com in episode 42 of Nerd Alert News. And Chris, I know that it takes everything within you to work on the same network as the guy that runs that show.
Yeah, the guy that hosts Nerd Alert News is an enormous tool.
All right, let's go ahead and move on. All right, so this past weekend, we record this show today on Monday, June 27th, and yesterday was the Podcast Awards. We've talked briefly about them around the network. We talked about them on Better Podcasting, and we were not at all a nominee on the awards because we had a little bit of a problem with getting our...
Come on, speak for yourself here.
Sorry, I should say...
We, as in the GonnaGeek Network.
The GonnaGeek Network was not on the awards nomination ballot. And it's quite honestly, it's just because we had our own award show on 150. And it just, we didn't want to take all the awards this year from all the other podcasters, right?
Yes, exactly.
But no, seriously, the podcast awards were yesterday, and if you're not familiar with them, just search them out there. They're one of the first links that come up there. I believe the official name is the People's Choice Podcast Awards, which has nothing to do with People Magazine, and it was something that last night was the award ceremony, and there was a little bit of something that came up and stemmed from this podcast awards. And by the way, I should clarify here, if you're watching the YouTube side of things, you'll see in our bar, it does say less important awards. And I'm just saying that the awards are less important than the GonnaGeek episode 150 awards. That's all that I'm saying there, because ours are more important, let's be honest.
And better produced.
Sunkast. But yes, no, we did have these awards yesterday. And Chris, I'm going to turn it over to you here to compose yourself and give a bit of a backstory to some of the brouhaha that came up yesterday. And then we're going to talk a little bit about our opinions on the said brouhaha and expand a little bit further.
So I watched bits and pieces of the podcast awards last night, and I kind of had my expectations as to who was going to win because I've talked about it before on the show. I listen to a lot of podcasts. Some of the shows I listen to are part of what is called the Diamond Club. Things like Night Attack, Cord Killers, Daily Tech News Show, all sorts of that stuff. It's a community of fans that enjoy podcasts, and each year they kind of find the podcast that they want to support come podcast awards season. And that was the same case again this year. Todd Cochran and Jason Bryant were doing the podcast awards last night. Everything had come through. Most of the shows that were Diamond Club related had ended up winning their categories. And then at the very end of the stream, it was very strange. So there was accusations or concerns that cheating had occurred because the folks over at Diamond Club had developed a little bookmarklet to help use Diamond Group, as it was called, which is actually Diamond Club, had developed a bookmarklet to help their fans know which shows to vote for and find them on the podcast award ballot. So a little background if you didn't know, during voting time for podcast awards, you can vote daily, you can vote one show per category, and then you have to confirm with your email address. The podcast awards site then sends you a link to your email that you have to click on to make your vote valid. So this had to be done. And what the Diamond Club folks were doing, T2T2 had developed a bookmarklet that people could put in their bookmarks, go to podcastawards.com, and it would highlight the chosen shows that Diamond Club wanted to see win, make it real easy for you to vote, but you have to physically click the radio button for each thing that you want to select, and then you have to enter your email address and confirm your email address. There were many concerns afterwards. At first, it was misunderstood what this was. They thought that there was a loophole that had been discovered, that people were cheating, that there was automated vote submission going in, or bot submissions going in. It was not the case. You can, in fact, even go and look. There is a video online. Steven can provide the link to it. I think it's geeks.link/Diamond Club. There's an excerpt from Night Attack number 120, which highlights the bookmarklet that T2 had made, shows how you do it, and shows how you're really not breaking the rules of the system. You're just highlighting what the shows are that the Diamond Club community is backing and does support. And one thing to point out, just because Diamond Club supported it, those all didn't win. No. It's not like they took every award on the show, just most of the awards.
Yeah, so there's the backstory on it, and let's clarify here. They did win, like, what was it, 17 out of 19 awards, something like that?
I think it was 14 out of 17.
14 out of 17.
I thought it was 15 out of 17, but either way, they took the majority of the things that Diamond Club was interested in.
Right, and now I want to discuss a little bit about the principle of whether or not this is cheating, but first I want to just give a little backstory further if you're not familiar with these podcast awards. Diamond Club has, or Diamond Group, whichever you prefer, they have done a really good job at recruiting the masses. And I used to do an awards, not for podcasting, it was for comic books. And we always had one creator that would rally their masses to win awards. As soon as you open up awards to the general public, my opinion is that you have to incorporate the factor of the popularity vote, because somebody who has a following is going to reach out and they're going to go, vote for us, we want to win. And the more people that you have voting for the same podcast, the more likely you are going to be to win. So I just want to give that little tidbit in there. But yes, the concept that we have here of you open up the awards ballot, then you take your bookmarklet that you've got, you hit click, and then it highlights and suggests to you who to vote for.
It guides you through the process.
It basically highlights all of a specific group, communities, submitted podcasts on this ballot. Let's ask here, do we think that this is cheating? Do we think that this is in poor taste? Or do we just think that it's just a tool that you're giving to your community? Chris, let's start with you.
All right, so caveat. I will go on the record and say I'm a fan of many podcasts that are part of the Diamond Club. I enjoy watching them. I'm not an active participant in chat realm or anything like that. I just watch it from time to time. I do not see the problem with this. In fact, they used a same approach last year for getting their shows nominated and then voted for and winning. All they have done here is simplify the process for Diamond Clubbers, for Chat Realm to go in there and say, these are the shows we love, these are the shows we want to vote for. You're running a popularity contest. What happened is the most popular shows won here because the Diamond Club group is a very passionate fan base. You saw that last year. You saw it again this year. They did everything in their power to get the shows they love to win the podcast awards. It is not in poor taste. All they have done is highlight the shows that they have selected. You don't have to use that bookmarklet. For instance, I voted multiple times in the podcast awards because you're allowed to vote daily. I voted for most of the same shows that the Diamond Club was supporting. Does that mean I did something in poor taste just because I voted for many of the same shows that they put out there as their selected ones? I don't think so.
Poor taste. Poor taste.
So I'm going to go to you in a sec, JS, but I just want to bounce off of something that Chris said. My opinion on it is pretty similar to yours. I think the big thing for me is that if this bookmarklet did not exist, essentially the only change, more than likely the only change that you would have seen in the votes would have been maybe some accidental votes in other directions, because the people who were using this bookmarklet were clearly going with the mission to vote for Diamond Club, right? That was the reason that they had this bookmarklet, and I highly doubt anybody was using it elsewise. They're just like, you know what, this is the only way to vote. No, they were going with the purpose to try to rally the troops as a community and get them together. So if they didn't have that, they would have been looking off of a list, and maybe you would have got a couple accidental casts towards somebody else. So really the trade-off is you're accidentally voting for somebody else, which after the first couple times, you're going to start to remember who it is you're voting for, and you're not going to be looking at that list anymore. So I personally don't see a huge deal with the way that it did highlight the recommended people to vote for, because it was just helping them accomplish what they were going to do anyways.
They were going to vote for them anyways. I agree.
How about you, Sunkast? What's your take?
All right, so full disclosure, GFQ had two shows that were nominated and up for a podcast awards. Neither one of them won, unfortunately. And one of our shows was actually on this list, on this bookmarklet that people were using to guide them through the voting process. So I think us winning proves that it's not rigged, correct?
Yeah, I would agree.
Not winning, I mean, because, you know,
I personally think that it just proves that you can't win an award, Sunkast.
Ooh.
Gee,
That's pretty low, man. That's pretty low.
So what you're saying is I have to go to the park and get people to vote for me.
You have to offer 15-year-old lollipops.
I'm just saying, next year on the GonnaGeek.com podcast awards for the GonnaGeek.com podcast, there may be a category that the best guest host named Sunkast. I'm just going to say that might be an award that comes up. So
with
possibly.
a C or a K.
We'll find out.
I personally don't think this was cheating. It was. I don't think you could call it a loophole. I don't think you can call it any sort of technicality. It was the way that the system is designed. It's a popular vote type of podcast awards. And this is what's happened year after year with the podcast awards. And whenever you have any sort of awards that is structured in this manner, where it's a popular vote and people are allowed to vote daily, you're going to get this sort of result. You're going to have a group of people band together, and especially if you have a very large community or a very dedicated community, you could go ahead and do something like this and get everybody organized in a manner where you can affect the system like this. And that's pretty much what happened here, is that this was all self-funded, and that nobody from these shows that won were really involved in creating this tool or using this tool. Yes, they communicated that this tool existed, but It was created by the community and used by their community. And they're even saying that because I know a lot of people that are involved with Diamond Club, and they were saying that this actually could have been easily stopped had the website actually had a content policy that restricted this sort of tool from being used. So they could have actually stopped this tool from being used had they put a content policy in their website header.
Yeah, well, I think, like, for me, there's a lot of things to be learned from this. I'm not necessarily convinced that there weren't things that could have been on the radar already. I think this just emphasized it a little bit. And to me, again, I think when you have anything that is open to the public, that you can definitely rally the masses. And before we do kind of hop off this topic, I want to ask our resident gamer here, JS. I know there's a lot of awards and a lot of different things like that in gaming. Is this something that the gaming community sees a lot?
Yeah, I mean, it's always happened. Like Sunkast said, there's always going to be people who are going to game in some way or another. And it's not really gaming. It's just somebody made a software that highlights stuff. It's always going to happen. The gaming industry, when they vote for stuff, it's popular, right? So it's vote. So any day you let people vote more than once, and you don't put in an authentication system, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be worried. You shouldn't be offended. Chances are, if you have 60 listeners, you ain't gonna win. Like, it's popular. It's just a popular vote.
Yeah.
That's the way these things have always been structured and will always work. And the only way around that is if you have a lot of restrictions where you're restricting people to one vote period through the duration, or you're structuring it by a committee that votes on who wins. And even then, you're still going to have a bias with a committee.
Yes, of course. There's always a bias. I mean, look at the Oscars.
Yeah.
So I will say, I hope this is not the end of the podcast wars. There were some comments that were made that made it almost seem like it might be the end of the podcast wars. I don't want to see that be the case.
No.
I'm kind of curious, and I'm sure Twitter and all sorts of places will have suggestions for how the process or how the awards could be refined going forward. And I personally do think if they want to continue to make the podcast awards beneficial to many folks, they might need to look at like separate tiers of things, like the hobbyist level versus the pro level. Because like Steven had mentioned at the top of the show, part of the reason why we hadn't really put in the money to be considered a nominee is the fact we knew we would never be able to compete with folks like Diamond Club and things like that. We have a great passionate fan base over on Geeks.live that watch a lot of our live content, but it's not the same numbers as the Diamond Club folks.
Stop you there. We won. All four of us won awards on the official GonnaGeek.com podcast awards for the GonnaGeek.com podcast. I'm just saying, somebody voted.
That is true.
Well, before we do hop off the topic, we have a short clip from the legendary Stargate pioneer. So let's find out what he had to say about all of this. Let's go to them live on scene, not live pre-recorded, but let's pretend.
Hey guys, it's SP. How you doing? Steven, thanks so much for taking my call. Let me tell you what, it was an exciting night last night with the podcast awards, wasn't it? I know we kind of covered it on Better Podcasting, and I think from what you said, you were going to cover it tonight, at least the post-mortem, or whatever you want to call it, on GonnaGeek. And I just want to give my 2 cents, basically. And I think a great way to revise them next year, hey, you remember when, like, we were growing up, Publishers Clearinghouse had the sweepstakes, and they would go around to the homes and actually give the checks with Ed McMahon. You remember that? I think we should do that with the podcast awards. What do you think? Next year? For like hobby podcasters, just go around the country, do a big GoFundMe for, I don't know, $75,000, $125,000, whatever. Get some really cool trophies and just hunt these people out. Just get their addresses from their IP addresses or whatever, and just go door to door knocking and asking if they're part of the podcast, and just give them the trophy and say congratulations. Take a little video. What do you think? What do you guys think? I think it would be a great idea. So anyway, I'm looking forward to what is going to happen next year, because whatever happens next year has got to be better than what happened last night. And just looking forward to all the improvements. Sorry I can't be there tonight, and I will be watching probably later because I won't be anywhere near Wi-Fi. And that's about it. I hope you guys are having a great time. Sunkast, thanks for taking my seat. Chris, I will catch you later, buddy, and you are on my next iPod list to listen to Nerd Alert News. Catch you guys later. Bye.
I thank you very much for sending that in there, SP. I should speak for everybody because I believe everybody shares the same opinion as me. We think that that's a phenomenal idea, and you can go ahead and fund that next year.
We'll let SP start the GoFundMe for this. So I'm sure I'll chip in like $5 or something.
Well, I think there's, like I said, a lot to be learned, though, about the awards. And the number one thing, of course, being that if you go to geeks.link/awards, you can find the most important podcast-related awards of all. Well, Sunkast, you got anything that you want to promote here before we do wrap up for this show?
You can follow me on Twitter at Sunkast. That is spelled with a K, not a C. And also check out my website where all my shows are. It's gfqnetwork.com.
And I have a question for you. Do you end up actually distributing that on any other major communities or anything like that?
Just YouTube.
Okay. Just wanted to check. That's all. Chris, you got anything you want to talk about? Any shots you want to take? Anything like that?
I'm not taking any shots. I was trying to be calm and rational and well thought out and was not dogging anything other than the fact that SP's audio quality sucked. Get a better mic, SP. Jeez.
You know what?
God,
Let's
that
talk about
background
this.
noise.
The guy has a headset. He has a headset. Don't you think that he should have an adapter? He should take it on his rope, put it in his travel bag. He's got the Audio Technica broadcast headset, and he should have that into like his iRig. Actually, I think he owns an iRig. SP. Put it in your travel bag.
That would be illegal to wear a headset in the vehicle, though. So I was mostly joking. It was pretty cool that SP chimed in with us. And
I agree.
I'll say the same thing I say each week. If you have a chance, head on over to GonnaGeekNetwork.com. Check out one of the awesome shows that make up this great network. We've got some great stuff here, and we've got a great community built up around it. So thank you, everyone who does listen and joins in our live streams.
JS, you got anything you want to promote?
I got nothing, man.
You got nothing.
Don't buy a Chromebook.
Don't buy a Chromebook. Why? I'm completely confused at why you would buy a Chromebook. All right, well, that is going to take us to the end of episode 151 of the official GonnaGeek.com podcast. I want to thank everybody who did come by Geeks.live tonight. We do always appreciate having you in the chat. So, for episode 151 of the official GonnaGeek.com podcast, I'm Stephen Jondrew.
I'm Chris Ferrell, an award-winning podcaster at geeks.link/awards.
I'm not an award winner, unfortunately.
Bye!
From everyone here at the GonnaGeek.com podcast, thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes. We encourage you to send your feedback by email to podcast@GonnaGeek.com. You can find all of our show history at GonnaGeek.com/official podcast. And while you're there, why not head over and check out all of the geeky podcasts on the GonnaGeek Network? The music heard on this show is by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next week.